Hello everyone, this is Take from bigheadtaco.com and welcome to my studio. I'm here to do an announcement, a unboxing, and the first impressions of a brand new Fujifilm X Series camera body. The new the X-T100. It looks like it's like the new X100, doesn't it? The X-T100, and I have the box here, right here, the X-T100. And by the name of the X-T100, you can tell that although it's closer to the XA and the XM series, it's kind of like the little brother of the X-T10 and the X-T20, which is what I started off with right here. And so just off the top of my head, I could tell that it's going to be between the XA5 and the X-T20. So let's do a quick, this is not going to be a concise unboxing, but let's do a quick unboxing. Alright, so let's start the unboxing here. This is the box, and this is the kit that comes with the XC15-45 lens. It is optically stabilized. It has the power zoom feature on there. It's all focused by wire, just like the other F series lenses, but this is okay. It's compact when you're traveling with it, but anyways, this is the kit, this is the box, and I don't know which I don't know what version I have. Let's just open up. Oh, here we go. So I have the dark silver version as per this box here. So let's open this up. All right. So I was told this is a pre-production, but the box looks production. You get a full written out manual, which is fantastic, because even though you can get a PDF downloaded version of it, at least you have this with you if you're out in the field. You just want to quickly, even if you're on an airplane, you just want a quick read. It's nice to have a paper version. So thank you, Fujifilm, for still including that. And here we are. We're getting into the meat of this unboxing. Let's unbox this lens here first. Nothing special. Again, it's just it's their XC series. It's a power zoom and focused by wire, and it's plastic mount. It should be decent, especially if you're going to be using this camera for vlogging or just kind of quick snapshots. But that's the lens there. And here is the body. Typically it looks sealed, but if this is pre-production, this must have been opened before, and even the weight. Wow, this is pretty heavy. The weight of it feels like there's a battery in it. Yeah, see though, so they probably charged the battery for me, so thank you so much, Fujifilm Canada. But this is the body. Wow, but it does feel really heavy. I'll compare it against the X-T20, but it feels heavier than the X-T20. And no grip on this side. Two dials here, unmarked dials, which is actually, like a lot of the other brands like Olympus, you probably can customize that. And this is the infamous screen here that can, look at that, swivels right out, and that's something kind of unique. The only other articulating screens Fujifilm had made thus far was it goes upwards like this and it faces forwards on the XA series. But I've never liked that because I want to be able to put a shotgun microphone or something in here as an accessory, or even like a light. And so having this to articulate this way, oh look, it even articulates down this way. So you can articulate this way as well as down. So that's fantastic, and out. So hopefully we'll see this in other Fujifilm cameras, including the upcoming X-T3. I think X-T3 will probably have this for sure. So we'll play with this later. Let's see what else is in the box here. Pull this out. And what do we have here? This looks like a European plug. So I think they sent me the wrong kit, guys. European plug. And I think this is the European converter portion here, I guess. So, or is this European? I think this is European. It's not Hong Kong. So they have that, and what else? There's something else in here, and it looks like, oh, I actually did read about this in the literature. I did read over the literature, but this is the grip. So there's like a little plug here, and then you kind of put the, I don't know why this comes off. I would assume most people would want the grip on it, but anyways, it comes separate, and there's a plug. I guess you just unscrew that plug, and it looks like they give you extra plugs on this side and an extra something else on this side. I don't know, it's just a bigger plug. So we'll see what those do later, but definitely gonna be attaching that. And they give you just a micro USB cable so that you can probably have in-body charging. That's probably what this is for. And that's it. That's the entire unboxing here with the, I'm gonna just line up the camera here. So there's the body, there's the kit lens, and of course you can order it without the kit lens. You got the cable, you got the grip, and then whatever country you're in, you decide on what type of plug you have. So, alright guys, I just finished the unboxing of the X-T100 here, and you can still see my apparatus set up there in the back, and I have the box over here. But I did play around with it a little bit, and there's a difference between reading over specs off of a sheet and then actually having it in your hand. But here I have the X-T20 as a comparison, and right away as I'm feeling the weight of these two, this feels, I think I wrote it down somewhere, but maybe I didn't, I don't know. It feels significantly heavier. The X-T100, and a lot of it has to do probably with the mechanism of the articulating screen. But this camera, like, not comparing it to the X-T20, but just on its own, this camera feels really well built. And in terms of the amount of dials on the top, it has 3 dials, so it doesn't have less dials. On the front, actually it does have 1 less dial. There's no front dial on here, but and it has this weird dial here in the back. You can see that there. It's kind of a vertical wheel, kind of goes up and down instead of kind of sideways like most cameras there, the rear control dial. But it doesn't feel cheap in the hand. So let's go over some of the specs. I have the specs sheet I'll put. So I have the cheat sheet here from Fujifilm, which is now available to the public. But this is what Fujifilm says here. It says retro styled. Here, maybe I'll hold it up like that. How about that? You can see that while I read this out loud here. So it says, retro-styled, portable in size, and built around a powerful 24-megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor, the Fujifilm X-T100 mirrorless digital camera is the ideal companion for creative everyday photography. Packed full of high-spec features such as an advanced hybrid autofocus system that's able to keep pace with even the most active subjects, a speedy 6 frames per second continuous shooting mode, high-resolution electronic viewfinder, and intuitive swiveling touchscreen. This is actually heavy, like I don't want to hold it up anymore. Touchscreen, it brings professional image making into everyone's grasp. Boasting an always-on Bluetooth connection, the X-T100 connects seamlessly with your smart devices via an built-in Wi-Fi connection to instantly transfer your images. Also featuring 4K recording and the option to capture footage in HD at 100 frames per second for super slow motion movies. And so that's kind of like the PR spiel that's going to be on everything. But I'm going to just quickly mention some caveats and some of these points, some things to remember. First of all, the 4K is at 15 frames per second, which is quite slow. So I wouldn't recommend anyone to do that unless they're doing like B-roll and they need to punch in. Maybe that's when you would use it, but I wouldn't recommend it. And the 100 frames per second super slow is only at 720p and not the 1080p. But for 1080 you can get to 60 frames per second or 59.94 frames per second, which is pretty spectacular. But let's just kind of go through. So I'm not going to read through all this. You can probably just go to Fujifilm's website to read this. But so far, the specs on this camera and just my first impressions of holding it, and you can see I already put on the grip on here, but so far it feels fantastic in the hand. So I've never produced a video with the XA series because that just never really appealed to me. This really does appeal to me. So thank you, Mark, Fujifilm Canada for shipping me one out early, as well as allowing me to be part of the release of this camera. So some of the key information, let's go over it now. First thing is probably pricing, right? So US pricing is going to be $599.95, so just under $600 for the body only. And the body comes in 3 different colors: black, dark silver, and champagne gold. And it is like a nice dark gray. I like the look of it. What do you guys think? I think it looks fantastic. And I'll embed some studio pictures that I've taken as well. And with the XC lens, if that's the lens that you want, personally, I think I don't like the lens, but I will test it for vlogging because it is reasonably compact. Although when you turn it on, it does come out quite a bit. It's only compact when it's turned off. But with that lens, it's going to be $699.95 US. And so for Canadian pricing, it's $749.99 for the body only and $899.99 with that kit lens. And I don't know what other lens, actually I do know. I shouldn't say that. I have a whole listing here of how it's going to come in. Let me see here. It only will come, at least at this time, it only will come with XC lenses. So if you're hoping to buy this body with one of the Fujicrons, like a 23f2, at this time it's just not available because this is sort of that XA XM series camera, but because of the naming of it being the X-T100, clearly it's a little brother. It's a little brother or little sister to the X-T20, and I could see a lot of things that are very similar, one of them being just stylistically. Key features, of course, is this articulating screen. It's not a fully articulating screen. I had a phone call with Billy just yesterday, so hey Billy, and we kind of went over some of the specs on this and some questions that I had, and he did say, you know, this doesn't flip all the way around, and then you can, you know, like on a lot of the Canons, you can flip this completely around and protect the back. You can't do that. This does articulate this way like this, and it does articulate down a little bit like that, and it does articulate forward like this, which is really something that people who want to shoot selfies, those that are vlogging, or even if you're not vlogging, if you're shooting a video like right now, I'm using the XE3, which is my current favorite compact Fujifilm X Series body. I have a mirror behind the camera in my studio, and so I can just kind of quickly peek to make sure the framing and everything is, and I just noticed this tripod is, but if you're shooting video, it's nice to have this forward-facing camera, although you can get a monitor, like an external monitor. It's just nice to have it built in. So this is really the key feature on this camera. And the number 2 key feature is actually this EVF. It's the same EVF that's in the XE3 and the X-T20. It's the same, you know, it's a 2.36 million dot point. I have the specs here somewhere. 0.39 inch, 0.62 times magnification EVF. So no, it's not as good as the X-T2 or the X-H1, but for something of this compact size and for this category, it's a decent EVF. And so having the EVF in the articulating screen is fantastic for the series of cameras that Fujifilm makes that does not have an X-Trans sensor, and it does not have an the Pro processor. So the new current processor is called the X Pro processor, X Processor Pro. Anyways, the same one that's in the X-T2, the X-H1, the X Pro 2, the X100F. This doesn't have the same processor. And I asked Billy, what is the name of this processor? Doesn't have a name. There's just an internal name for this processor. So it's not going to be as powerful as those series of cameras. And the sensor on here is also different. It's a 24 megapixel. It's a 24.2 megapixel sensor, APS-C CMOS sensor with a Bayer color filter array and not the X-Trans. And that's the biggest difference. And that's the same that's in the XA5 and the XA series. But I did ask Billy, does this have an anti-aliasing filter since it does not have the X-Trans color filter array? And he said no. And then I asked him, well, why? And he said because at 24 megapixel, it can overcome a lot of the weaknesses that when the sensor used to be a 16 megapixel, that the A filter is necessary. At 24 megapixel, Billy said it's not necessary. And I did do some quick pixel peeking pixel. I I just took a couple of quick images and the files are fantastic. And I even compared it against the X-H1, which I'll post somewhere, either on my website or on my website. And key differences looking at the two types of color filter arrays. But I'm pretty impressed with this 24 megapixel sensor. So you're not gonna lose anything in terms of if you're looking for sharpness and detail. The detail and the sharpness is different, so it comes down to which one you prefer. Let's see what else. One of the things I noticed is that at 1080 59.94p, and this can do 1080p at 59.94, 50, 24, and 23.98, and it could do 30 minutes of it. And of all the other X series bodies, they're all 15, other than the X-T2, the X-H1, but that's only with the grip. This could do 30 minutes internal 1080 at almost 60 frames per second. So that actually is a big bonus. You don't have to I'm constantly resetting this camera. So when I talk for longer than 15 minutes, the video just stops, and I have to keep an eye on it to make sure that it doesn't stop. But this thing can go a full 30 minutes, which is great for those that are shooting videos. And as I mentioned, it does have a high speed 100 frames per second, but that's at 720p and not 1080. And it has the always on Bluetooth feature, which is fantastic. Very similar to what's in the XE3. Now, some of the key differences between the X-T20 and the XE3, which are very similar, and the X-T100 is, we already talked about the sensor, all right, Bayer versus X-Trans. Fully articulating screen, which none of the other cameras has. Champagne color. So if color is a big deal to you, which it is to some, because cameras can also be kind of fashion accessories, this does come in champagne. This does not have Acros film simulation. It has 11 film simulations, but does not have Acros. And I asked Billy why. I said, can this sensor not handle it or process? He said, no, it's a matter of jumping into the premium. I don't think it's a big loss. If you're huge on Acros, then this doesn't have it, but it does have classic chrome, and it does have Provia and all these other color film profiles if that's what you're looking for. For self-timer, it has the 2 and 10 second, but it also has the smile feature where it shoots when you smile. It has the buddy feature. I guess you can put in people's faces and it'll recognize the faces. It has group, so as long as there's that many people in the picture, it'll shoot. So if you have up to 4, so if there's 3 people and the 4th person comes in, and then it'll shoot. And it has a face auto shutter. So I guess you program your own face, and as soon as your face is in the picture, it'll take a picture. So I haven't tested it. If you do a lot of group shots, that's probably important to you. This does have a touch screen, and according to Billy, this actually has they've improved the algorithms on it. So Billy feels that it actually feels more sensitive and more adaptive, and just has a better feel than all the other previous Fujifilm touch screens. And so that would include the X-H1, the XE3, and the X-A5, as well as the GFX 50S. Preview film simulation real time, and this is something that Billy said that's very specific to this processor, where you can actually, before you apply the film simulation profile, you can see it in the windows. And I'll embed an image that sort of shows that, but that's one of the things that this processor can do that the X Processor Pro can't at this time. And so that is a feature. And 6 frames per second mechanical shutter versus 8 frames per second on the X-T20 and the XE3 in mechanical shutter, where it goes up to 14 frames per second on the X-T20 and the XE3 when you're using electronic. And it doesn't look like, I looked through the specs, it doesn't look like this can do continuous in electronic. But all right, just as I mentioned, I talked for 15 minutes and the video stopped, and so that wouldn't have happened with the X-T100. So let's continue. I was talking about the DRAM. So there is an increase in DRAM on the X-T100 over the X-A5. And so that allows for faster autofocusing and just overall faster processing. But comparing the autofocus from the X-T100 with the X-T20 and the XE3, this is going to be slower according to Billy.
How much slower is hard to say. Go to the Fuji guys YouTube channel. I think Billy says they actually do a autofocus test on the X-T100. I'm gonna run my own test as well. But if it's decent enough for video, for vlogging, then I'm happy. And so again, different processor than the other cameras. This does not have an X processor Pro, so we'll see how this performs against the X-T20 and the X-T3. If it's enough for my needs as well as for your needs. One thing that people may be concerned about is where the plug-in for the microphone. So if you are into video, microphone is not on this side, it's actually on this side, which makes sense to put it on this side because this is your grip hand, but it looks like it's in front. It's not looks like, it is in front of the articulating screen. So the way around it here, so I'll show you. And Billy tried to explain to me over the phone. It's very difficult to explain what's going on here. So let's just grab this. So this is the video microphone made by Fujifilm. I actually do enjoy using this, the Mic ST1. And what you do is, even though the microphone is, so let's just, and it is 2.5 millimeter, Fujifilm, please, I beg you, 3.5 please. 3.5 mil. But this is the microphone, all right? You can see right there that it's kind of in the way. But because this also articulates forward, can you see that? Articulates forward. What you do is that I hope that picks up there. Can you see what's happening there? Can you see what I hope that's picking it up there. But now, so there's from the side there. Now when you do this, the microphone, the plug is not in the way. Do you see that? Look at that. That's pretty smart. And if you need to, it does articulate, you know, like this, or a little bit down like that, or you can just have it straight on like that. And so for vlogging, if you are vlogging, you know, this is kind of how you would do it, or you have a little tripod or something like that on the bottom, some kind of a grip like that. But see, now it allows you to have an external microphone and a front-facing screen, which is something that people have been asking for from other manufacturers, including Fujifilm, but this is the first of its kind for Fujifilm that you can do it this way, using the flash hot shoe for the microphone, or you could put a light on here as well and have an external recorder, but microphone, this is the typical setup of a vlogger like this. So this is something that I am looking forward to the test. And even if you're not a vlogger, you know, I would say that my first impressions is I actually am pretty impressed with this Bayer color filter race without an AA filter on this 24 megapixel sensor from Fujifilm with the film profiles. I just tried the Pro Neg standard and I compared it against the X-H1 with all the exact same settings, and I was pretty impressed. And so if you are an X series shooter and you don't mind having another body for video, for selfies, for vacations, but also actually having your images looking a little bit different with a different color filter array, the X-T100 is probably the first camera that you would consider made by Fujifilm because of the EVF and the fully articulating screen. Maybe the XA series or the XM series was just not really your cup of tea. So, and you know, this does have I mean, this lens is the plastic mount lens, but this is the metal mount lens mount, and you can put any of your XF lenses on here, so there's no need to be worried about the compatibility on this. So that's it. That's my first look at this. My first impressions is I like the Bayer filter. I like the image quality coming out of this. EVF, I'm used to this because it's the same one that's on the XE3 and the XT20. The weight of it, as I mentioned, it actually feels more solid than the XT20 just because it's heavier. So it is heavier than the XT20 and uses the same battery. The lugs, the strap eyelets are different. This uses the old school ring type. This uses a slit type, but it's not as big as what you would find on a DSLR. So I actually am not a fan of this type of eyelet. Can you see that? I'm not a fan of this I'm not a fan of this slit type eyelet. So there's just a few, and I didn't notice a strap in there. Maybe the kit will come with one or not. I don't know. It just wasn't in there. But I do have some of these straps I can put on here, but there's less hipster options. In terms of the shutter sounds like the X-T20. It has the same 1/4000th of a second top shutter speed, 1/180th flash sync, so it's probably the same shutter. Exposure, it's 256 zone. We were talking about autofocus. It's going to be different because the processor is different, but the layout and everything looks very similar. Buttons, it doesn't feel as nice. It's kind of rounded and flush. It feels kind of like a first gen, sort of the X series. But I guess it just falls in line with the XA. I'm assuming that the XA is similar to this. This button here is a little bit odd, but it looks like it's pressed down, so there is a button. I like the custom, this far left dial. So this is, I think, maybe it's not a first. Maybe the XA5 has it, but this dial is actually customizable. And I put ISO on here. And so that I actually kind of like, that this is left open for you to use as a custom function. And this does have swipe FN button. So these 4 on the D-pad are already set for you, but you have another 4 here that you can customize, plus a customizable dial, which is actually kind of cool. And I wouldn't mind seeing that on a future professional X series camera body. So I'm impressed. Looking forward to testing this camera. Check out again Billy and the Fuji guys and the official Fujifilm review, first impressions of this camera, as well as my article that I wrote for Fuji Love. I wrote an article with pictures similar to the ones I've already embedded in here, and you can check that article out as well as I go through sort of like the main differences between these two, because some people just don't like reading. They just would rather watch this video. So thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like. Any questions down below? Thank you Fujifilm Canada for trusting me to review this camera. Check out Fujifilm, check out Billy and all the other videos they'll have. And look for more videos from me. I'm going to be doing a video test and a stills test. And don't forget to check out my website where I compare the CMOS versus X-Trans. But that might not be out right away, but we'll see. So thanks for watching and happy shooting. Not bad. Not bad. Peace.